So there was some big news coming out of the newspapers today. La Parisienne, the French newspaper, is suggesting that Qatari Sports Investment Group may pull the plug on the huge investment that's gone into Paris Saint-Germain. Kristen Hennig, the journalist, joins me right now to give me some expert knowledge on this whole situation and what this could mean for the French league and for, of course, the French side, Paris Saint-Germain. Hello, Kristen. How you doing, mate?
I'm not bad, thanks. How are you?
Very good. Yeah, very good. And actually, this whole thing's a bit weird for me as well because, and we'll get onto it very soon, but there are championship teams in the running if the Qatari Sports Investment Group look to buy another club, four, in fact, which we can talk about in a second, and a team in Italy as well. But let's go to kind of the start of this rumour, this newspaper article that's come out. Why do you think that they would want to do this when they've spent so much money on this project?
Well, I think there's two key reasons to draw from this situation. The first one is, and I think Le Parisien talks about this, they're not delighted with the performance of PSG. Yes, they've won Ligue 1 numerous times, they've been dominant domestically, but when it comes to Europe, they just haven't been able to reproduce that form. They haven't got past the quarterfinals, and they've even seen teams like Ajax and close neighbours Monaco get to a semi-final with significantly fewer resources, with much less transfer spend, investment in players, all this kind of stuff. And I think it's frustrating to the ownership because I think they see a potential there that's not being realised, and I think they're tiring of that. And then the second kind of grander situation is that at the minute there's quite an unstable situation in the Middle East with Qatar. They're essentially part of a trade blockade, as I understand it. I'm not terribly au fait with the entire situation, but there's a little bit of disagreement because they've aligned themselves with Iran, the situation with the World Cup. There's a whole, for want of a better word, a whole mess unfolding in that region that's just making it difficult for Qatar to really summon that money up that they need.
Right. So all right. Because when I look at it, and I read the reports about they're not getting far enough in the Champions League, I looked at it and I thought, hang on a minute, you get tiring of something like that. That just sort of screams of short-termism. It seems strange that if you're looking to create a club that's going to win multiple Champions Leagues, there's also going to be years when you don't do that well. And to spend that much money and then get tired of doing that and step away from it and move somewhere else, that felt like a bit of a strange one for me in terms of a reason. But maybe a lack of money that's available. Like is that kind of what you're saying, or is that what you're saying?
To a certain degree, like I say, it's very complicated. There are articles that can talk about it in much greater detail and with much greater confidence than I can. But essentially, as I understand, I'm just going to literally read you from the notes that I've got, which is Qatar began to become more influential on the global stage through its sports investments and that kind of thing. And with the 2022 World Cup, that kind of sparked a bit of jealousy between other neighbouring states, and they kind of wanted some of that action. Right. Qatar then aligned itself with Iran, which is Saudi Arabia's direct competitor and rival in the region, going back to the 80s with the Islamic Revolution and all that kind of stuff. And since then, there's just been high tensions and what's said here, proxy wars fought via insurgencies, similar with the US and the USSR in the 20th century. And the UAE is technically a state of war with Qatar, which is why Qatari fans were banned from the Asia Cup, why a fan was arrested. I think we saw a Brit was arrested for wearing a shirt, a football shirt. The UAE and Saudi, whom all border Qatar, imposed a blockade and huge economic sanctions as punishment to Qatar, and it's believed that's had an impact potentially on PSG in the long run as well.
Right. The other thing I wonder as well with this is it seems like the PR of it all, that they're sort of the outlook on them as a company, as an investment group, they're not happy with that either. The criticism they seem to be getting in the French league has been huge. The rest of the world don't really like that project as well. So it feels like, I wonder with the fact that they want to step out of that but also move into a different club, it feels like they want a better PR spin than they're getting at Paris Saint-Germain. And I think part of that is because the league is so uncompetitive for them. I mean, saying that, they lost the cup final, didn't they, against Rennes recently? But generally, it's the problem that they've got is that in the Champions League, you're one game away from going out, and that's the whole decision on your entire season. And then in the league, the only thing you can do is win the league. So I wonder if that's why they're starting to look elsewhere to maybe more competitive leagues where it doesn't look, the PR spin is a little bit better for them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, the thing I find a bit difficult with Qatar, essentially, you have to go back to about the turn of the decade, which is when they wanted to try and push themselves forward as the preeminent Gulf state and do that through, in part through sport. And you'll probably remember they sponsored Barcelona for a time on the front of their shirt. But what they did in doing that, which is not discussed as much, is they moved UNICEF from the front to the back, lower back, as I remember it, by paying an astronomical sum. And it's things like that where it's that old Jurassic Park quote, you spent so long thinking, could you do it? You didn't stop to think, should you do it? I don't think the optics on that are great to move a global charity to a diminished position so you can have yourself splattered across the front.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right in what you say there. The performances, it's a very difficult one for PSG. I think they're almost isolated in this nature that if they win Ligue 1 every season, it's not seen as a huge achievement, but if they don't, it's seen as a massive embarrassment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas,
and I think for English football fans, Premier League football fans, I think they're getting a similar kind of feeling now when they're looking at Man City this season and the amount of money they've spent and how dominant they are in terms of the points that they've done. Of course, Liverpool doing brilliantly to sort of keep up with them. But you are starting to get those grumblings from people going, oh, hang on, this isn't going to be fun if we've got to do this for the next 20 years. And I think there's the same feeling with the French league. If all the money was to come out, how do you think that would affect the French league? Do you think it would be a massive blow for them?
I think it would likely tighten the league up a lot more. The thing is with PSG, they're not entirely reliant on this money. Yes, it allows them to sign the likes of Mbappe, Neymar, and make these astronomical purchases that we see. But actually, a lot of the commercial aspects of the club have risen. Now, you can argue that some of that is through less than sincere sponsorship deals that are forged and these kind of things that, for want of a better term, cook the books relative to FFP. But at the same time, PSG is bordering on, I would say, a global brand. Its partnership with Air Jordan is quite prominent now. And I think it's moving into not just from a sporting realm, but now into a pop culture realm as well.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of people, I'm sure you have as well, who wear those Jumpman jerseys and probably have no idea who PSG are. They just like the aesthetic of it. And when you pace the culture in that way, it opens you up to a massive financial treasure trove that you can really milk for quite a while. So I don't think it would be ripping up the foundations if they left, but you would absolutely see a change in the way that PSG operate. And saying that, I don't think that's a terrible thing because their academy is good. It does produce players. The Ile-de-France region produces a mountain of players that they could and should be using. And I think for a variety of reasons, we saw that really awful story about a coach who racially profiled some young prospects, as well as I think, just negligence. They haven't made the most of that. And I think it's a real crying shame.
Yeah, I guess what will be interesting, though, is if you have that exodus of players, which it's already been reported that with FFP, they're going to have to get rid of players before they would want to bring anyone in, regardless of what's going on with the owners. If you lose Neymar, Mbappe, and all those big time players, then that deal with Air Jordan, it happens for this period of time, but then after that, there's not the same excitement about it. There's not the same spotlight on PSG as a brand that you're trying to build. So they're going to struggle in that sense, I would imagine. Let's talk about the teams that they've been linked with as the sort of next stage of their move. So there's 4 championship clubs: Leeds United, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, and little old Queen's Park Rangers, which for me, I really don't know how to feel about that, to be honest. I think it's kind of once bitten, twice shy. But it shows that they want a large fan base, maybe apart from Queen's Park Rangers. But I think the QPR thing would be the fact that we're a London club. But for those other guys, I think they're looking in particular, I would imagine, at Leeds United and Aston Villa, because those are the 2 teams who might move up into the Premier League next season. They won't have to invest or waste time. If it is going to be a championship team, do you see it being those 2 teams?
I thought about this before, and I promise this is not sycophancy. I do actually think QPR could be a decent shout. Because And I go back to, and you'll know this better than I will, that documentary that was filmed about them and the idea of them being a boutique club in London.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the execution on that plan was quite poor in terms of the branding and the visuals. But the fact it's a London club, the fact that, again, that makes it so much easier to attract players that will want to come and live in England's capital. And also the fact that, really, with the greatest of respect to everyone attached to QPR, there's a lot of ceiling for that team. There's a lot of history to potentially build yourself. And I think that's part of what the owners would look at is, yeah, it's great if we take over a team that's already well established and we add, another couple of Jenga blocks on top of what they've already got. But if we build the entire tower, it makes us look so much better. And again, it does go back to that idea of for Qatar, a lot of it is about optics. A lot of it is about kind of pushing away the negative stories and connotations that are associated with that country and moving into a more positive image.
It's funny you say that because I don't think QPR are the right choice for exactly that reason. And that quote that you used before, there's not enough fans there for it to feel right. The reason you're doing it is because it's a London club, not because it's a club that's a big club that you can then see moving it forward. I think the smart choice for them would be Leeds or Aston Villa or even Forest, because they have got a huge fan base. In particular, I think Leeds would be the pick if they've learnt from what's happened at PSG. But I guess they've got it in their mind that with PSG there is that fashion capital of the world, and so they've been able to do that with PSG. They might want to do the same thing in London. I really hope not, but I think the football decision is Leeds United or Aston Villa, in my opinion. Last one that they've been linked with is Roma in Italy. This one feels, from a PR point of view, a big club that you can then kind of move forward and actually get to that Champions League quite quickly. They've also, a lot of people like Roma as a club at the moment. They could be a good shout for them as well, don't you think?
They could, but James Pallotta has no interest at this point. He essentially decreed it as fake that there'd been any discussions and even any talks about that. And he, in fairness to him, seems very passionate about owning that football club. I think he has quite a strong emotional tie to it that for someone like him who is quite financially well off, you're not going to tempt him with money. I think for him it's about, the fact that he is part of this football club. He helps it make decisions and runs it. And I think that's where it becomes difficult, is that, yes, you can try and buy a football club, but you have to have someone who wants to sell. And I think the four that we mentioned originally, they're all in a position where I think realistically the owners would be willing to make a profit on them. I don't think, I could be horribly wrong here, but I don't think there's a huge emotional attachment to any one of those involved. Look at Forest. There's a bit of civil war kind of unfolding in their director's box. So situations like that, I think, I don't want to say predatory. That's quite harsh on Qatar in this instance, but I think
opportunistic.
Certainly, opportunistic is the best way to put it.
Okay, guys, let us know in the comments below who should they go for if they want to take on an English club, or is it Roma? Is that the best choice for them? And where do you see the French league kind of ending up if PSG's owners step back and take all the money out? And what does this mean for Neymar as well? Let us know in the comments below. Kristen, where can they find you?
At KHENEAGE.
Okay, go check him out. If you've enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to Ball Street, and we'll see you soon.